Welcome back, everybody. We are Two Beards in a Board Game. Today we're going to be taking a look at Dice Throne.
Yeah, it's a 2 to 6 player game for ages 8 to adults, and it's by Mind Bottling Games with recent fulfillment through Kickstarter.
Yes, and it takes about 20 to 40 minutes to play, probably.
Depends on the number of players, really.
Right.
It can be, if you play in heads up, it can take 2 minutes, honestly.
It could just be a couple of turns if you get really good rolls.
Yeah.
So this game is for up to, it says 6 players. It's a 1 versus 1 game. You can do 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3, or you can do free for all. Now we've tried it in a couple of different game modes, and we tried a 6-player free for all game last night.
And it was kind of a cluster, really.
Yes, it was. The biggest complaint that I would have about that is that it takes so long in between turns.
Right. I mean, the idea is the game, you roll, you attack your opponent, you deal damage, resolve it, move on to the next turn. But if everybody's going one turn at a time, you have full 6 players, unless you're targeted, you're sitting there for up to 10 minutes, depending on how long people think about their turns. Because I've had several turns where it's much like Yahtzee, where you get the chance to re-roll some of your dice again. And you're sitting here trying to think, do I want to try to go for it? Do I just want to take this?
Right.
So the turns can take a little bit of time. There's a little bit of strategy, a little bit of thought in it. So it's not a straightforward, I'm going to roll. Okay, how did my roll go? I'm going to continue on. It's roll, what did I do? Okay, I want to keep these 3. I'm going to re-roll 2 of them. Right. But now that changed my roll a different way, so I'm going to re-roll 4 this time because of something else. So much like Yahtzee, you have this re-roll, and that can take time thinking about what you want to do.
Yes, and targeting is random when you're playing that way. So, you roll a die and then you count, whatever number you get, you count to whoever you're going to attack. And so, if every turn takes about 2 minutes, there's 5 people in between your turns. So you're looking at 10 minutes anyway. And that's if everybody's only taking 2 minutes and there's not a lot of extra effects and stuff like that.
Right.
That being said, I love the game.
I think the game really shines as a head-to-head game.
Yes, we played just a little while ago, actually. Where it was myself and my wife against Charlie and his wife, and we kind of modified the rules a little bit because we decided to go head-to-head across the table versus the rules suggest doing like if you've ever played Magic, like a 2-headed giant type style where you share life and then randomly attack. We just kind of played, it was almost essentially like 2 1 versus 1 games.
It was, we just kept it so... the Frozy half win and the Neil half win. Just so it wasn't chaotic going back and forth because we were sitting across the table from each other.
And the flow was a lot better on that. There wasn't a ton of time in between turns.
No.
When I wasn't playing, I was attacking you and you were attacking me, so there was still something going on.
Right.
Because when you get attacked, you get to roll defensive dice.
Right.
I believe the base game, I could be wrong about this. I had a hard time finding out, but I believe the base game, the non-Kickstarter version of this, is coming into retail now, and I think it only comes with 4 playable characters.
The way I understood it, the 2 characters were Kickstarter exclusives. I don't remember which ones they were.
I think it's the Pyromancer and possibly the Paladin. I'm not sure. The Kickstarter on this was a little weird as far as like the stretch goals and stuff like that went, and they added 2 more characters, and I don't know if those ended up making it to the base game or not. If anybody has this and they're watching this video, let us know in the comments. But if you watch any of our other videos, you know that Charlie and I enjoy rolling dice. And so when a dice game comes along, we're all about giving it a shot.
Right.
And there's a lot to like about this game, in my opinion. There's a lot to like about it.
I think a real easy way to describe it, it's a combination of Yahtzee and with phases of Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
There's an upkeep phase, which is
straight from Magic.
Right from Magic. There's a main phase, you attack, and then you have a second main phase, and then you end your turn, which is literally what you do in Magic the Gathering.
Right. So the turn of flow goes, you have combat points, and again, these, you may or may not be able to see them. I think these were also Kickstarter exclusive. I'm not sure if these come with a retail or not, or if there's a different way to track these things, but you get a dual spin health counter, which is really nice. I will say a couple of them, the pins are
finicky, and it's just you're going to run into stuff like this with production that not everyone's going to be perfect. The monk that I use, the wheels just hit each other perfectly
at certain spots
depending on where it's turned, so that makes the pin pop out, and then it's all over the place.
Yeah, so the dual health wheel lets you keep control of your health, and then you've got your combat point wheel, and this is what you use. You're also have a deck of cards that you're drawing from every turn. and this is what you use to play spells and upgrade your abilities on these boards, which we'll talk about for just a moment. These boards are nice. There's a huge glare on theirs, but they're nice, thick cardboard. They have full art on the back, which I think is cool.
The artwork is just phenomenal with this game.
Yeah, the artwork is fantastic. And so you can upgrade your abilities. So the boards tell you, what it is that when you're rolling, what you can do. So like for the barbarian over here, if you roll, and you have 4 swords, then you can deal that much damage on your attack. And so for your cards, there are, cards that let you draw more cards or gain more combat points. But mostly, they're used to upgrade your abilities.
Right.
So you spend a couple of your combat points. Maybe on that one, if you play the upgraded one, it does a little more damage.
Right.
Some of them add new effects and stuff like that. And again, I think that's a great idea.
And some of them will even add new spells. I know with the monk, it'll take one. There's one ability based on your roll, but it adds a second ability that you can potentially roll into.
Yeah, and then you have a defense area too. Everybody gets a certain amount of defense die. And then this is upgradable as well. I know the barbarian only has 1 upgrade card for it, so there's the chances you're going to get it are pretty low, but it's cool. And then the dice.
Good quality
dice. They're nice.
Yeah, they have both matching symbols for certain abilities, and there's also a small and large straight. I don't know if numbers are necessarily needed in the game.
Yeah, probably not.
But some players where if you roll a 4 of a kind, it would make it undefeatable.
Right. And then each character also has one of these reference cards. I'll put a shot of those in there for you. It just kind of gives you an overview of what your die faces are, and then your abilities here. There are a lot of tokens that you pass along other players, and like the barbarian's only got 2. The monk, however, has a full-on 4 abilities that he can go through. So there's actually I think a skill level on each.
There's like an easy to I don't know if it's like expert or whatever skill, and it's essentially how the barbarian has a stun ability and one other thing, whereas the monk can deal out 2 status or deal out a status and accumulate different types of tokens to do things where he can use his chi to increase a damage or reduce damage. He has the ability to evade an entire attack, or he has the ability to remove a status from one of the statuses that the opponent's left on him.
Yeah, there are a lot of status effects that you do have to pay attention to.
Yeah, and it's a little confusing with the statuses are always written on your card if you're giving them out, but they're nowhere else.
Yeah, like the burn Ree was playing the burn ability. The burn ability is on the pyromancer's copy of this card, but then you give it to somebody else, and they don't have a copy of what burn does.
So you're always potentially asking what was this? What does this one do again? What does this one do? Because you don't have your
until
until you really grasp the game.
Yeah, until eventually you play the game a lot more. Which I think that we'll end up playing this game a lot more. I like it a lot. I'd like to get a 3 versus 3 game going to see how that works out.
Right.
But as far as everything goes, I love the art. The box in this, the inserts are all individual little dice trays, so you can just take these out and give them to each player. So you're not have a giant clunky insert in here. So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, setup and teardown time is literally a minute or 2.
Yeah, it's very, very, very easy. You give everybody their
player
player
board,
card,
you grab your reference card, you grab your little tray, and you're good. You're ready to go.
You're good. You shuffle up your deck and you start playing.
Yeah.
I love the box art. I love the rolling of dice. I love the abilities. I love the turn order. The one thing, again, I would say that I'm not a fan of is if you're going to play free-for-all, I feel like it was thrown in there.
Right.
Especially for 6 players, I feel like maybe it was just like a last-minute addition or something like that. It can take... You're just sitting there for a while, so the timing of the game is a little weird.
I foresee a lot of house rules being written for this game to make the multiplayer aspect a lot more easy to understand, easy to run, so there's not as much chaos.
Yeah.
So what we were talking about, if you're running a 3-on-3 game, you would essentially, going back to the Magic roots, treat it as a team trios.
Right.
Where everybody plays across from each other, and the first 2 matches that are won by a team win that perspective, like
Right.
overall game.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could do it that way. That's definitely an awesome way to do it. You could do it the three-headed giant way, where everybody shares life, which is the way it suggests.
Yeah.
And then each player rolls to see who they attack. Much like in the 6v6,
Right.
Or the 6-player free-for-all. I think it would go still faster on 3 versus 3, especially if everybody on the 3, if everybody's taking the turns at the same time.
Right, like if you have a long table and you're all sitting across from each other, you just go back and forth.
Right.
I really think Team Trios is the way to go if you play 3v3.
Yeah, I think it's a better option.
Right, and if you're playing heads up against somebody, your games can last, a few minutes. So you could easily go best 2 out of 3 wins that side of the table,
Right.
And then the first team to win 2 out of 3 matches wins the entire round,
Yeah.
much like how Team Trios would have been ran in
Yeah,
Magic tournaments.
It does. This lends itself very well to a tournament style game.
Very much so. Yeah.
So leave us if you guys have any ideas as well. Leave us a note in the comments. Let us know. The last thing I'll say about this is that season 2 of this is hitting Kickstarter on Valentine's Day,
Correct.
February 14th. So if you're interested in the game, I have honestly no idea whether you need this. I don't know. I've heard.
Yeah, they call it what, season 2, right?
They call it season 2.
So I'm guessing it's going to be an upgrade to rules of the first version of the game and adding new characters. The one thing with Wells was a gunslinger, so I mean it sounds like it's going to be a Western themed game rather than a fantasy themed game.
So I mean it looked really cool. The boards were die cut on them. So I'm definitely going to be backing that. I would say I'm going to give this a rating of Amish 6 out of 7. I loved it. The only thing I give it that knock for is because of that weird free-for-all timing issue where you're just sitting there. Because people were like, my daughter played with us last night, and her attention span, she's 18, her attention span is like next to non-existent. So in between rounds, she was just on her phone and not paying attention, and then so that can happen when you're playing and you have 10 minutes in between your turns.
Right. I'm going to take one step back and say it's a lumberjack rating for me, 5 out of 7, just with the kind of ambiguity in some of the rules and lending itself more to house rules to make it quote unquote a better game, but all in all, it's a solid concept of a game. I love the idea of battle dice against an opponent. It's an awesome game.
And hopefully season 2 might clear up
Season
some
2
rule
might
stuff.
fix some of those things. That's why a lot of games will take Mansions of Madness, for example, that just brought out a second edition, which fixed the first edition, changed rules people didn't like, and added more things to it. So it's very possible something like this could happen with this game as well.
Yep. We appreciate you watching the video, guys. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. If there are any video or any games that you want us to review, go ahead and let us know in those comments. We appreciate it.